How much do I need saved for retirement in order to get $5,000 a month in retirement income? That's what we're going to talk about today on the Your Financial EKG YouTube channel. My name is Drew Blackston, and I am a little hoarse today because I am excited to talk to you about retirement. And we're going to look at 3 specific strategies on how much money you need saved for retirement in order to have $5,000 a month in retirement income. You ready? Let's get into it. Now, the first way that you can find out how much money do I need saved for retirement in order to have $5,000 a month in retirement income forever is using the 25X rule. Now, we've talked about the 25X rule a lot on this channel. We've also talked about the limitations of the 25X rule on this channel. But I want to show you why the 25X rule is a good cornerstone for planning for your retirement. Now, let's assume in income, you want $5,000 a month. Now, how do we know how much we need saved in order to generate $5,000 a month? Well, if we use the 25X rule, we take 5,000 and we multiply that by 12. That means we need $60,000 a year, okay, in order to retire and have retirement income. So how much in retirement savings do we need to generate $60,000 a year? Well, that's where the 25X rule comes into play. Take the $60,000, multiply that by 25, and that's going to give you $1,500,000. So what that means is, in order to have $5,000 a month in retirement income, you need at least $1.5 million saved for retirement. Now, let's talk about some of the limitations. Let's assume this person is 60 years old and they want $60,000. Well, at 60, you need $1.5 million. But let's say at 67, they're going to get Social Security of $3,000. So now they're going to get $3,000 a month in Social Security 7 years into their retirement. You multiply that by 12, that's $36,000. So we originally needed $60,000 a year. Now we're going to subtract out 36 because Social Security is coming into play. So we take the 60, that's what we originally needed, subtract out 36, and that gives us, what does that give us? 0, 0, 0, 4, 5, 24,000. Man, you guys catch me doing math, long math on camera. So you take 24,000, you multiply that by 25, and that means it's 600,000. So in reality, what's the right number? Do I need $1.5 million saved for retirement? Or do I need $600,000 saved for retirement? Or do I need somewhere in between those two figures? And so that's sometimes the limitations of just saying, use the 25X rule. The other limitation is twofold. Inflation on this money here and inflation on that, and taxes. How is your money tax qualified? Is it in IRAs, 401ks, 403bs? Because if you need $60,000 to live and all your money's in an IRA, you're going to have to take at least 70 because you got to pay taxes on that money. So the first way we look at this is through the 25X rule. Now we're going to go through step number 2, but step number 3 is where we start to implement the Your Financial EKG software, and we look at all of the different factors, taxes, inflation, market returns, and that's where we get the exact number so we know exactly how much we need saved for retirement to get to $5,000 a month in income. So hang on for that towards the middle end of the video. All right, the next way to determine how much you need saved for retirement in order to have $5,000 a month in retirement income is using the 4% rule. Now, the 4% rule is really simple. It just says take 4% off of whatever you save for retirement plus inflation, and your money's going to last for somewhere around 30 years. But there's some limitations with the 4% rule, and I want to show you that right now. So how you come to know how much you need saved for retirement using the 4% rule is you do a future cash flow calculation. It's a future cash flow calculation, and you can find a calculator on Google. I used my financial calculator for this, but I'm going to show you how we do this. Okay, so if we're doing a future cash flow calculation, we want to know if we want $5,000 a month in retirement income. We want to know how much we need to save to get $5,000 a month in retirement income using the 4% rule. So the first thing is, how long do we want our money to last? Well, that's called your number of periods. We want that to last for 30 years. Now, if you go on Google and you type in future cash flow calculator, you can follow along with me. I'll actually give you the inputs. So in number of periods, it's going to be 30 years. Your I is interest. What's our interest going to be? That's 4%. So you hit I and 4. Now, our present value, that's what we're trying to figure out. How much do we need to have saved right now to get $5,000 a month forever? So we look at the next section of the calculator, and it's called payment. That's how much we're going to get per month. That's $5,000. And then we look at future value as 0, meaning we're going to run this number for the next 30 years down to 0. So what's our present value going to be? So if you do it on the calculator, you get 30 years, 4% interest, $5,000 a month, 0 future value, meaning we've spent all of our money, we've bounced that check on the day that we die. Our present value is $1,047,000. So using the 4% rule, we need $1,047,000 to have $5,000 a month for the rest of our retirement. Now, we're not calculating in inflation. Obviously, you can't do that on a calculator. So there's limitations, just like with the 25X rule. Remember, the 25X rule had us at 1.5 million. Well, somewhere between 1.5 and 600,000. So my question is this, like, which of these numbers is right? Like, I want $5,000 a month. I have Social Security. There's taxes. There's inflation. There's market returns. Like, which one's right? Which one should I do? Hang on. That's what I'm going to show you in the Your Financial EKG software. All right. How much do I need saved in retirement savings in order to get $5,000 a month in retirement income? We're going to go through that in the Your Financial EKG software to give you an exact idea of how much you need saved and all the different variables and factors you have to think about when planning out your retirement income, such as taxes and inflation and market risk and everything that goes into your retirement plan. Are you ready? Let's go through this right now. All right, so we've got David, and we want $5,000 a month in income, and David's retiring at 60 years old. So he's 60, he's retired. How much do we need in retirement savings? Well, we got to look at some other factors first. Now, at 67 years old, David's Social Security is going to be $3,000 a month. Now, obviously, we could take Social Security earlier. If we took it at 62, he would get $2,100. And if we took it at 70, he would get an increased benefit of $3,720. Now, if you decide to take Social Security at your full retirement age, you're going to get 100% of your full retirement benefit. If you wait till 70, you get 124% of your full retirement benefit. And if you take it early, 62, 3, 4, 5, or 6, you get a reduced Social Security benefit, 70% at 62. So it's important to have an understanding of when am I going to claim Social Security, especially if we're trying to decide how much retirement income that we want. We got to determine how much we need saved. Well, when are we going to take Social Security? Those are key factors. And so we want to look at that within the software. Now, from an asset standpoint, this is where we're going to determine how much we need saved. So for David, he's got $15,000 in the bank, and we have $0 in our 401k. Now, he has more than that in his 401k, but what I'm trying to do is make the software tell me exactly how much he needs by giving it all the other information except for how much he has in retirement savings. Now, David's main asset is his 401k, and it's a traditional 401k, meaning all the money going into his 401k is tax deferred. So when he pulls that money out, it's going to be taxable. So if he needs $5,000 a month to live, that's a net figure. So he needs to take more on top of the $5,000 to pay Uncle Sam. Again, those are things we need to start contemplating. He has a house, it's worth $400,000 and it's debt free. Now, our portfolio weighted average, it's really important to understand how much are our investments projected to earn in retirement. And we're going to look at two different projections. We're going to look at a geometric return, and we're going to look at kind of a Monte Carlo style return and seeing what would this portfolio do if it was put through a meat grinder, right? If the worst case scenario happened, how would this portfolio do? So we're going to assume a 6% rate of interest on his 401k. 6% is pretty conservative compared to the overall market. Think about over the last 50 years, the S&P 500 has averaged 8% with inflation. So 10%, but 8% with inflation. If you put a 6 down there, you're being a little bit more conservative than the overall market. And I know what you're thinking, Drew, what about the market in 2023? What about the market? It's going to crash. I don't know. I can just look back at history and tell you what it's done. And if we look back at history, the market's averaged 8% with inflation, and that's with market crashes. That's with a dot-com bubble. That's with a 1974 crash. That's with a crash in 2008. That's with multiple recessions. That's with presidents assassinated or attempted assassinations. So a lot of crap has happened, and the market has continued to earn 8%. And so I think we can be pretty safe at saying a 6% rate of return. So if we look at an asset track for David, we've got our home of $400,000. We used to make $90,000 a year, but we've retired. Our Social Security is $3,000 a month, no pensions. We have 0 in our 401k, wink, wink, and we've got $15,000 in the bank. So now we know, hey, we gotta know what we gotta save for $5,000 a month. So here's our expenses, $5,000, and we're gonna put a 3% inflation rate on it. Now, inflation history, since 1914, the 109-year average is 3.27. I know that we've put some big numbers on the board the last couple of years. 2021, a 7 spot. 2022, a 6.5. Man, I want to score that many runs every baseball game, but we don't want to do that with inflation. But inflation over the long term is averaged about 3.2. So we can assume that over a 20, 30, 40-year retirement, inflation's probably going to revert back to the mean instead of being on an outlier at 7, 8, 9%. All right, cash flows. This is where we would put in anything that David might want to do in the future, like vacations or buying cars, things like that. We don't have any of that right now, so we're just going to leave this alone. Now, taxes are important. This is where we're going to come back to. So we're going to skip this now. We're going to come back to taxes because I want to show you how your taxes affect how much you need to have saved for retirement income. All right, so now the software is going to tell us exactly how much we need. $1,130,863. That's what we need. So let's say $1,130,900. So let's copy this number. Let's come over here to assets. Let's paste that in. Let's say 900. All right, so we've copied and pasted what the software says we need saved for retirement. Remember, here's our expenses, $5,000 a month. Let's go back to taxes. Remember, I talked to you about just a second ago why that's important. Let's go to the year 2024. That's a full 12 months of taking $60,000 a year. And you can see, look at this, $67,550 is what he needs out of his portfolio. Well, Drew, why is it $7,500 more? Two reasons. One, inflation, and two, taxes. So he has to take out more on top of the 60 to pay Uncle Sam. Here's our standard deduction. So there's our taxable income of $53,852. So his federal tax is $7,155. So that puts him in the 10.57% effective tax rate. He's in the 22% tax bracket, but his effective tax rate after deductions, credits, and all that is 10.5%. Now, let's think about the year 2026, because in the year 2026, the tax code is going to increase. So let's go to 2026, and let's just say it increases by 25%. That's the Obama era tax code. We don't really know what the tax code is going to change to. We know that if Congress does nothing, it reverts back to the Obama era tax code. So in 2026, you can see now he's had to take out $77,403. It's only been 3 years, and we've gone from $60,000 in income to $77,000 with taxes and inflation. And look what his tax bracket is now, 27.5, and it's jumped his projected federal tax rate up to 15.03. So an increase in taxes has caused him to have to take out more for Uncle Sam, but inflation's caused him to take out more for retirement income. So you see how important tax planning is when you're doing your retirement income plan, and why you need a financial EKG to know exactly how much you need saved for retirement with inflations and taxes and market returns. And if you want a financial EKG, all the information's in the description below. So let's take out the increase. Let's reset it back to normal, and let's go to retirement. So here we go. We've got him to 96 years old. So we've pretty much been able to take out $5,000 a month. Here's Social Security, and we never run out of money. We get to basically 96 years old. We got a $577,000 house. It's a really good scenario. Now, let's do a couple tweaks to this plan. Let's go back to Social Security. So remember, at 96 years old is when we run out of spendable assets, not our physical assets, if we take Social Security at 67. But what if we take Social Security early? Like, what if we take it at 62? What does that do? We go back to retirement, and we run out at 96 still. So it didn't do anything. So now we go back to income. Oops, we don't want to add a benefit. We want to go to the calculator. What if we take it at 70? Does that increase, decrease? What's that do? Go to retirement. Look, we actually lost a year. So for David, it makes the most sense for him to take Social Security between ages 62 and 67. What if we take it at Medicare age at 65? I have a lot of clients that like to take it at Medicare age because they are able to get off of the Affordable Health Care Act. They go on to Medicare. Now we don't have to worry about subsidies and where our income is coming from. It's really important if you retire under the age of 65 to keep in mind that if you're going to get health insurance on the Affordable Health Care Act or on the exchange, that you need to keep your income below a certain level if you want a subsidy. Because if your income goes above a certain level, you're going to pay for all your health insurance, or you're going to have a big tax bill at the end of the year. And a lot of people don't think about that. So if we take Social Security at 65, we're still out at 96. So let's just leave it there. We'll take Social Security at 65. And you can see that our rate of return that we need to avoid a shortfall is only 6.41%, which means that the assets in the market only need to earn 6.4 to make David's money last till past 100, which, are we really worried about that? He's running out at 96. But you can see we're running this at 6%, which is pretty good. So he's in a really good place. We only need 0.4% more basically on his 401k, and we never run out of money. It's a really good situation. Now let's look at the market for a second. So this is our Monte Carlo scenario. And what I love about the software is it's going to break down the Monte Carlos on an individual basis. Instead of it being a big chart, you know, you've seen those people on YouTube, they stand behind a board and they've got this big chart of Monte Carlos and there's all these little lines and they're like, well, you know, in this scenario, it's like got an 85% probability. In this scenario, it's a 96. In this scenario, it's a 60%. I'm like, dude, I want to know like 100% probably. Like when I fly from Tampa to Vegas, like I don't want an 80% probability we're going to get there. I want 100% probability or 99.99. And it should be the same with your retirement. Why are we going to base our retirement on probability? We need to base our retirement on getting to retirement, getting through retirement, and protecting our ability to stay in retirement. Don't probability me. All right, so here we go. I'll get off my high horse for a second. I'll make my voice even more hoarse doing that. So we're going to show Monte Carlo, and what we're going to do with these randomized rates of return is we're going to have some really crappy returns up front, and then we're going to have random returns all the way out through his retirement. So what does this do for David? Let's see. Well, look at this. He's out at 81. Wow, that's a big deal, right? That's not 96. Well, we're calculating. That's 81. Well, what caused that to happen? This right here, -14, -12, -12, -11. That's called sequence of return risk. Sequence of return risk is the risk that you go into retirement and the market immediately falls. And that for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, the market is down, it's negative, and you're pulling money out of a negative asset. And the only way for that asset to go back up is the market has to go up. But the problem is you're pulling money out of it. And that's called sequence of return risk. It's like running uphill in sand. It's really difficult to get to the top. And so we've got to look at David's strategy and say, okay, Dave, if we have a really bad 4 years in a row, now the last time the market went down 4 straight years was during the Great Depression. But if this happens, we need to be aware of that. We might need to adjust your spending or your retirement income. So let's generate some new rates of return. Okay, -1, -7, -7 to start out his retirement. What does it look like here? Oh, 94 and 96. We're looking better. So you see how we can randomize this and actually get into the Monte Carlos themselves. This one's going to be really bad. Look, 16, 12, 3, and 16. Let's go down here. Yeah, we're out at 78. Now, the other thing that we can look at other than randomized rates of return is we can go to historical rates. So Dave, what happens if you retire and the year 2000 happened and it mirrored what happened between 2000 and 2010? Where's your portfolio? Oh my gosh, Dave, you're out of money at 77. So if we have a tech bubble crisis, you're out at 77 years old. That's tough. What if we have a 2008? Where are you at now? Look at this. You never run out of money. That's pretty good. Let's go back to 1964. Because, well, let's use 1968. So from 1968 to 1982, that's the last time we had high inflation. So let's look at what happened then. Oh man, you're out at 81. So when we start throwing in market volatility into this portfolio, what we're noticing is this $1.1 million that the software is saying you need is not actually holding up. Because what we're doing is instead of taking geometric rates of return, just 4, 4, 4, or 5, 5, 5, or 6, 6, 6, or whatever, now we're actually taking market returns, historical market returns and randomized market returns, and we're putting them in here. So for Dave, this might be a situation where we have a serious conversation. I say, hey, David, do you need this amount of money every month? Can you lower your expenses? Or, I know I say this and you don't like it, can you work part-time? Now, it doesn't have to be the rest of your retirement, and it could be at Home Depot for 5 years, 10 years, whatever you want to do. But can we have some added income into the portfolio? So there's always situations where the world's not perfect and we can't always find a perfect situation, but what we can do is find solutions so that you can get to retirement, you can get through retirement, and you can protect yourself from getting out of retirement. Hey, thank you so much for watching and putting up with my voice. God bless. Bye-bye.